Well, here we go again. Some things are inevitable in life. You're born, you die, Danica Patrick is a bellend, and every year we get to speculate over the second Red Bull seat. We're one race into the 2025 season, and the nuclear sirens are already wailing as Liam Lawson hasn't made the best of starts. The Kiwi was drafted in to replace Red Bull's resident glorified doorstop, Sergio Perez, the rationale at the time being, well, it's not like we could find anybody worse. Well, if Australia is anything to go by, maybe you can. A quick scroll underneath the team's social media following Sunday's race is enough to realise that this is a view held by more than just a few Twitter users screaming their useless opinions into the void. Give Yuki that Red Bull seat now. Welcome back, Checo Perez. Replace Lawson. Liam will last less than doing an F1. Classic Slowson result. Okay, even this one got liked by the Red Bull admin. But should we all throw the towel in now? I appreciate that's hypocritical for me to ask, given I spent the last 12 months railing Perez, but 1, Daniel Ricciardo's not in the picture anymore, and 2, actually, I haven't got another argument for that. We should probably start by looking at why Red Bull chose Lawson in the first place. While he didn't do a bad job in his 6-race audition at the back end of 2024, he was beaten across the board by V-Carb teammate Yuki Tsunoda. Deciding against Yuki was strange then, particularly given Red Bull have a bit of a history with people who like beatings. But can we defend them at all here? Or do they just hate Japanese people? Well, we can start with Red Bull's reasoning at the time, which was while Yuki was on paper the better driver, Lawson was close to him despite his experience paling in comparison to Tsunoda's. With 2025 marking the Racing Bulls driver's 5th season in the sport, Helmut Marko's logic was that Liam must have a higher performance ceiling if he can even be remotely close after just 11 Grand Prix. Therefore, Lawson is the better overall driver and Yuki can get in the bin. Liam's mental toughness compared to Tsunoda was also a factor in the decision, with arguably all of Verstappen's Red Bull teammates meeting their downfall thanks to the Dutchman's ability to make them rather suicidal. This was an area Lawson appeared to excel in, however, the mental toughness bit, not the desire to brain himself. He was quick to stake his claim in the paddock when he first arrived in 2023, continuing that run in his cameo performances last year, famously telling Sergio Perez to f*** off, a statement that Red Bull evidently agreed with. Tsunoda, on the other hand, was notorious for letting his short man syndrome get the better of him earlier in his career, and while this is an area he certainly improved during his stint in the sport, there were fears that moving him out of a team he's established and well integrated in, and dropping him alongside Max Verstappen in the Red Bull, could easily bring these issues back to the surface. So, December rolls around, Red Bull finally unplugged Sergio's life support, and Liam is announced as his replacement for 2025. That pretty much brings us up to present day. So, what's gone wrong? Well, the warning signs actually arose in Bahrain testing, where the team appeared to still be clueless over what was actually wrong with their car. The RB21 has carried through a lot of the characteristics that made Perez's therapist able to buy a new estate in Monaco, and to make matters worse, Liam's running was limited due to, ironically, a pressure issue on day 2. The Kiwi's preparation was also disrupted by the new TPC rules introduced in 2025. TPC standing for testing of previous cars, just in case you thought it meant tits, pricks and c***s. That's the FIA who introduced all this in the first place. Previously, teams were able to test cars 2 years or older as much as they wanted. Now they're limited to 1,000 kilometers and 20 days because of reasons. And that's made Liam's adaptation to the new team that little bit harder than drivers would have faced before. By the time F1 rocks up down under then, we're looking at an underprepared driver whose car has the handling characteristics of your nan. Oh, and he's driving around a street circuit he's never raced around before. With that context, it's little wonder why he struggled when the track went green. Now, before we get into the numbers, it's worth acknowledging the fact that both Verstappen and Lawson ran different packages in Melbourne, Liam running an older spec floor and front wing. The team luckily still cautious of when Perez was given new upgrades and proceeded to test their structural integrity rather than aerodynamic performance. Does that account for all the deficit we're about to discuss? No, but I'm just getting it in now before some virgin in the comments decides to expose me for not doing any research. FP1 saw Lawson finish 16th, 1.2 seconds adrift of pace setter Norris and 8/10 off Verstappen. Not an ideal start to the weekend, but still, at least he kept all 4 wheels on his car, unlike the Conservative MP over here. Come the afternoon session, Liam was able to reel 2/10 into his deficit to Verstappen, but still didn't look at peace with the car, and thus the team set to work on adjusting the setup overnight. He'd therefore have the final free practice session to test these improvements heading into qualifying. Only Lawson would manage just 2 laps before encountering an energy issue with his RB21, which ruled the Kiwi out of the rest of the hour, and meant he now headed into the first serious session of the weekend, massively down on experience and at a new circuit, and running a setup he'd not got to grips with either. That might go far to explain why Lewis' Q1 impression appeared to be made up of a scenic tour of Albert Park's grass runoff. That left him 18th on the grid, over a second down on Verstappen in third, and Sergio Perez to smile for the first time in about 12 months. Race day would roll around then, and with the team opting for a pit lane start for Lawson, he would once again have just a few reconnaissance laps to gauge the new personality of his Red Bull. What also didn't help was that the circuit was now full of God's piss, and when you've already got about as much confidence in your car as I have confidence in Naomi Schiff sprouting a penis, this was never going to end well. Sure enough, Lawson spent most of the afternoon lapping second slower per lap than teammate Verstappen, who was busy trying to challenge the McLarens for victory. He was actually still set to potentially get some points during the final flurry of pit stops, though staying out too long on the medium compound of tyre before a series of spins eventually put him into the wall and out of proceedings. As far as starts could have gone, I'm not sure it could have got much worse, and next week in China it could well be a similar story. It's worth remembering again that a lot of these races in the first half of the year will be tracks that Lawson is either completely unfamiliar with or has only ever driven in an F2 car. The real indicators of a problem then will be at a track like Suzuka, where Lawson has plenty of experience from his Super Formula campaign, and it's a circuit that he's driven well at in Formula 1 in the past. Beyond that, I worry that this first half of the season will just be a case of Lawson doing his best to cling on to that Red Bull seat, and I think once he's built up some confidence, or he goes to circuits he's more familiar with, we'll begin to see better results. More weekends like Australia will just make it harder for that confidence to build, and then there's the matter of if Red Bull will even wait that long. Yuki Tsunoda is out of contract at the end of the year and will likely already be in early talks with other teams, seeing little to no realistic route into Red Bull after his snub at the end of last season. Red Bull have said they'll give Lawson time, but they also said that about Pierre Gasly, and then they fired him about 3 days later. And really, it's just a shame that Liam now risks joining this exclusive group of talents that could well have excelled at top teams, only they were promoted too early and drowned in the pressure cooker that's Max Verstappen's shadow. There's also an added risk with Liam that were Red Bull to make a mid-season driver change and promote Tsunoda, he may not even end up with a landing spot at Racing Bulls. Marco has already seemed to have turned his dick in the direction of the next up-and-coming star, F2's Arvid Lindblad. Rumours emerged just last week that Red Bull have put in a request for a super license exemption, similar to the one that Mercedes may or may not have applied for on behalf of Kimi Antonelli in 2024. If Red Bull decide it's time to finally euthanise Lawson and put the poor Kiwi out of his misery, they may just deem there no point in retaining him in the family, booting him out the door with Lindblad taking the vacancy to RB. And that wouldn't surprise me, as we end up in the same cycle yet again. The driver gets thrown in at about the age of 2, shows some signs of promise, is held into the main team too early, and then any of that potential fades away like Lewis Hamilton's 2008 hairline. Just when will this team learn? Returning to Lawson though, well, let's just give him a few more races. As I say, if things haven't improved by Suzuka, okay, fair enough, maybe he's a lost cause. But it's been one race, and only Liam's 12th in his entire Formula 1 career. It's not going to stop me slagging him off in the comedy review, but maybe that will change someone's mind out there. Anyway, that's my thoughts on the matter. Now I'm curious to know yours down in the comments section below. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop it a like and get subscribed as well. And a huge thank you to the members and patrons who got early access to this one. If you want to get in on that and receive some exclusive content as well, head over to the link in the description down below. With my plugs out the way then, have a good one everybody.